Hey guys, I want to talk about something that I find really cool about YouTube. Since I got involved in YouTube, I have made some of the nicest friends that I think I've ever made. Being an introvert, it doesn't come easily to me to make friends. It's not something that happens fast for me. But since I got involved in YouTube, I have found that I've made some of the coolest friends a person can make. I mean, I've been really amazed by some of the really kind comments and private messages and so forth that people that have subscribed to my channel have sent. You know what? It's funny. I look forward to looking at my YouTube comments almost more than I look forward to anything. Certainly more than Facebook garbage and any of that. There seems to be just a really cool vibe with all the folks who are sending comments and private messages on my YouTube channel. And I haven't really paid attention to YouTube channels outside of the radio world. Maybe it's not that way, but I've noticed that in the radio world anyway, the comments and stuff that show up on YouTube videos that guys like me and Larry and Gary and Bob Anderson and Buzz and people like that make, the people that make those videos get the nicest things said. The comments are fantastic. Something else I wasn't expecting is the generosity of the folks that I have run into. Let me give you an example here. This box showed up at my door just yesterday, totally out of the blue, and I was not expecting it. Now I had given this person my address, but I figured he was going to send some pictures or something. But this is really neat. This came from Gary, who is YouTube handle is Rebel9668. Now Gary lives in central Indiana, one of my favorite places in the whole world, and I've made no secret about that when I talk to Gary, that I really love the area where he lives. I used to live there myself, and so I've enjoyed watching Gary's videos because he really highlights some of the cool things that happen in that part of the Midwest. And Indiana is one of those sort of secret places where it's just a wonderful place to be, a wonderful place to live, and most of the people in the country don't know about it. I mean, a lot of people know about Salt Lake City and all the mountains and the skiing and all that, blah, blah, blah. But what they don't know about is the down-home, small-town world of places like where Gary lives in Indiana. I lived in small towns around the Champaign, Illinois area for many years, and I'll tell you something, man, that's heaven to me, and I'll go back there someday because that's the best place in the world to be. The small town Midwest is wonderful, and Gary is a good example of the kind of person that lives there. Gary's a nice guy. He'll talk to you about anything. I'm sure if I were there, he'd sit down and we'd have a long chewing of the fat. And people like that are generous. And Gary noticed one time when he did a video on this instrument that he bought, that I thought the instrument was really cool. Well, Gary found he didn't have really a need for that instrument, so out of the blue, Gary sends this thing to me. Now, this is really cool. So I just have to show it to you and give a shout out to Gary, because this is just the coolest thing. He sent me a note. And you know what's really neat is that Gary wrote it in his own hand. This is not an email note. This is something Gary wrote. He says, I've been trying to remember to get this to the post office for the last week now, and I finally got around to it today. Yeah, it sounds like me. It takes me about 2 weeks to get something to the post office. My wife, on the other hand, will get it there that morning. I remember you expressing an interest in it, and I wanted to give it to you as a gift. Wow, now that's just cool, man. When I read that to my wife, she was amazed. She thought that was the neatest thing. He says, take care and keep up the excellent restoration work you do, my friend, Gary. And he signed that on October the 4th. And, I got to tell you, first off, I want to say to Gary directly, Gary, thank you, man. You're very cool. I love your videos. You were the first person out there who noticed my videos and gave me a shout out, and for that I'm very grateful. And I love watching your stuff because you do some cool stuff on trains, some cool stuff on what's going on in central Indiana. And it makes me want to be there with you, my friend. But it'll have to be enough for now to watch your videos, and I enjoy them. And so I'm grateful. Let's take a look at what Gary sent, okay? Now this is the coolest thing. And by the way, this had a bunch of other packing on top. I have to admit, this is not an unboxing video because I've already unboxed it. I'm the impatient kind. And waiting to set up to do an unboxing video is outside of my nature, man. When I get a box, first thing I do is go to the kitchen and grab one of wifey's kitchen knives, which she really loves when I do that, and I start cutting the box open. I just can't wait. I don't even think about unboxing videos. But I will tell you, Gary knows how to pack, because he packed this well. He double boxed it and he put lots of padding around, and it arrived safe and sound, Gary. I want to thank you for that. So let me take the inner box out. Set that other box aside. Now, what's inside of here? Well, he even packed it well inside of this box. Now, many of the YouTube sellers would have sent this box with a couple layers of newspaper and called it good. You know, that's just, it's funny. But let me show you what Gary sent me, man. This is cool. You will have seen this in one of Gary's videos if you go back and look at his videos. And I'm thrilled because I will sort out exactly how this works, and I'll use it because it is made by Hickok. Okay, now I love Hickok, and those of you that are into test instruments, you know that Hickok made some really cool stuff. So let's take a look. Let's unwrap this thing. Let's derobe this thing. All right. Check this out. I'm guessing, Gary, if you didn't know, I'm guessing this is about 1938, 1940 vintage. This is pre-war, or my name is Uncle Sam. Check this out, man. This is a Hickok Model 900. And of course, made in the USA. Everything good back then was made in the USA. And it looks to me like this is a meter used to measure power based on the current that is flowing through this device. It has a fuse, so definitely power flows through this device. Of course, it's a test instrument with a meter. It'd have to, but it's got a line in. And the load, same deal, 1, 2, and neutral. Check this out. It's got volts, amps, and watts. Okay, and it's got a couple different scales: 26 amps, 2,000 watts. So looks like 260 volt. Which I've not heard of 260 volt, but I'll check that out. Perhaps that's the max, and this would be useful for 240 volt. Looks like 13 amps and 1,000 watts. That's another scale. 130 volts, 6.5 amps, and 500 watts. So I'll have to figure out what this is all about. First place I'm going to go is Radio Museum and see if they have a schemo on this guy. And then I am going to just start snooping around and find out. I'm sure Gary did a bunch of it. But this wasn't Gary's thing. He meant to buy a vacuum tube voltmeter, and you know what? It looks like a vacuum tube voltmeter, so it would throw me too. And I'm going to figure out what this does, how it works, and if it needs anything. I don't know if there are caps inside of it or anything, but I'll go through it eventually. You know, you all know about my schedule. My clients' radios have to come first, and right now I have a bunch of those. That's why I haven't really done much of my stuff. But look at the condition of this thing, man. The paint is beautiful. All of the knobs, the Bakelite, and all, it's great. It's beautiful. The buttons feel good. These switches feel good. You know, a little deoxide would be all they'd need. And check this out. On the back, let's get a closer look if we can. On the back are some instructions, okay? So I didn't see these yesterday. I noticed them as I was pulling it out of the box this morning. Instructions for using Model 900 volt amp watt meter. So I was right. It's a volt amp watt meter. So it measures line in and it gives you. It's a device that you flow current through, and it measures voltage, amps, and watts across it. So pretty neat, man. I will read these at another time, but it tells you how to measure volts, to measure amps, and measure watts. Where will this be useful? It's going to be useful in a lot of ways. For me, when I look at machinery or, you know, radios and so forth, and I want to know total power consumption so I can figure out maybe using a power resistor, that kind of thing, what power resistor I want to use. That's a good application for this. If I want to determine what fuse rating to use for a set, this is a good application, okay? This will help me to measure those things. This will even be good if it'll do 240 volt. I don't know what the wattage of my table saw is, but I've got an awful lot of 240 volt equipment outside, and I'd be able to determine where I am wattage wise on those. So this thing has applications for me, and I'll use this a lot. This is cool. And so of course I want to thank Gary for this. Gary is an awfully generous man, and I'm glad to know you, Gary. Like I said, you were the first to notice my videos, and you're always out there, and you're always giving me great comments, encouraging comments. And in my book, you are first rate, my friend. And so, not to copy on John from Arkansas, but I think that copying in this case is a good thing, and it's appropriate. I want to give a great big shout out to my friend Gary in Indiana, Rebel 9668. Go check out his vids, man. You'll love them. All right, I've been reviewing my video on what I did when I took apart this whole assembly right here. What I'm curious about, let me pause it for a second so you can see. What I'm curious about is I forgot how these things, these grommets and these little bushings mounted up. So I need to know how that goes in place. Plus there's a little cardboard light shield that goes along underneath the buttons. And I'll show you that here in just a second on the video that I needed to refresh my memory on how it works. This is why I shoot the videos in the first place. The YouTube thing was kind of a fun byproduct, but I had begun shooting videos to help me to be able to see what I did. Photographs just weren't enough for me because I didn't get to see my hands in action, and that's a big part of knowing how to take it apart and how to put it back together. So I'll show you what I mean here. So when I shot my videos long before I ever got into YouTube, I would talk to myself just like this. I like to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. So I would let myself know what it was I was doing. That way, that's just another form of reminder of how to put it back together. And let me show you why. They're actually quite flexible, more than I usually see them. But if you look down in there. So what I'm doing is explaining to you guys, but also to myself, why these have to be replaced. A lot of times I'll review this video before I go and put the thing back together. Not just to know how it goes together, but to remind myself what parts I need, just in case I don't have everything. And this video thing is a great utility, even if you never ever publish anything on YouTube. You see they're cracking pretty. Now I'm going to get into disassembling this thing here shortly. And I had to remind myself how this went together here. Now one of the things that's a concern to me, and I'll show you when I get back to the bench, is that these grommets that I have, the grommets that I have are slightly different size. They're a little different diameter, they're bigger. The hole is the same, but the grommets I have are slightly thicker. So I'm going to have to put a spacer washer on the back side of this, which is no big deal. That happens all the time. A lot of times I run into a radio that I cannot find exactly the right grommet, but I will adapt what I have because it works just fine. So I remove this guy here, and then I'll put a spacer washer on the other side for the grommet that I have that's a little bit thicker. It's not it'll work great. I do it all the time. So now when I go to the front, I can see very well how this thing is put together. See there, on what I didn't catch right away, the reason I had 5 grommets in the bag is there are 2 grommets per side on this this little preset tuner chassis. And I show myself right here where that ground strap goes, how these bushings are mounted, and where the screws go. So now what's interesting is there are no screws on these outboard bushings. Just as I thought when I look carefully inside my 461209, I see that the top of this tuning preset button assembly is mounted to the cabinet itself with a screw that goes in from the back side. There's one on each side of this thing. There is the other one, so that's exactly what I'll do when I get the cabinet back from the owner. By the way, guys, there's the back of the 1209. Looks real similar to that 471230, except the 1209 is just a little bit simpler. And when I look carefully at this video, when I took this thing apart, I can see those 2 outboard grommets right here. And what I cannot see is a screw going into either one of these grommets. I organize all of my videos into these file folders here to help me remember where things are, helps me find them faster. It's better than having a whole page full of videos. I just have to guess at the pictures. I'll give them titles rather than these numbers, which doesn't help me. These titles that are given to them by the camera does not help me. But I'll start putting titles on these things so I know what it is. But to keep them in sequence, I also put a number before the title, and that organizes them in the sequence they were shot. And I always, even if it's number 1, I use 0, 1. Sometimes I use 0, 0, 1 if I know I'm going to be greater than 100. 0, 1, 0, 2, so forth. That way, when I go to access these and I lay them out in the video software, if they're laid out in sequence, I know my video is set up correctly. But what I'm getting at with all of this is to explain to you the utility of making videos. You don't have to be, the kind of person that likes to get it on, out there in front of the world and show the world what you're up to and be a blabbermouth like me. You don't have to do any of that. If you make a video and you talk to yourself as you go, and you can have background music if you like. A lot of folks even put YouTube videos up with background sound. But if you do that kind of thing and you talk to yourself as you're going, then you will find that you can much more easily put the thing back together. And the same is true when you're doing a recap. I don't show you most of the video for the recaps that I do, but I've got hours of recapping video that I've taken as I worked that I just edited out when I did the YouTube thing. Most of this video that we're looking at right here, even though I'm mostly talking to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and install these grommets that I mentioned. My other computer, my old Dell, the one that I replaced with the big mobile workstation, I'm going to use that for a kind of a special purpose that I'm going to show you in another video later. But I'm also going to use that as a computer I can play YouTube on while I'm doing video editing, so that I can have more time to actually spend watching other people's YouTubes. It's really kind of selfish for me to put my YouTube vids up and kind of expect or, hope that people watch my videos if I don't put any time at all into watching other people's. But those that are doing a lot of videos understand that it takes an awful lot of time just to make the videos, so you don't always have time to do that. But I'm trying to find ways to combine what I do so that I can watch people's videos and yet still get my stuff done. That's why I do this in the first place, so I can learn what other folks are up to, and we can kind of be a community and help each other out. There we go. There are 4 grommets. Now remember, I said that these grommets are just a little bit thinner than the original grommet, and you can see that. That's okay. They're going to support it just fine. So where it's thinner is on this cushion face right here. But it's not supporting a lot of weight or anything like that. And as long as I don't over crush that, it should be fine. So I will go ahead and utilize these buggers. Remember, of course, that we had this standoff that goes right here that supports the preset from the back end. And the way you put these in, the way I do it, sometimes a little bit of whatever liquid lubricant you can imagine. But this one I don't need to. And then you just sort of start by pushing one edge in, and then you work very carefully around like that and push it in. And then a lot of times you'll see me doing this. I'll get in here and kind of go like this to kind of work, if there's anything caught in here, to kind of work it out so that it makes it nice and round. That's going to mount right there after I get the assembly on this part right here. I need to make a little light shield, just like what was on there when I started. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just needs to be made out of cardboard, but I need to go ahead and get that done before I mount this thing. You might be asking, well, what about all that video that you record, all that video footage that you never use? Doesn't it eat up a lot of memory on your computer? And yeah, it would if I left it on my computer. So here's what I've done, and this is not that expensive. This didn't cost me a bunch. Let me show you what I got here. I just buy these little external hard drives, I buy the high speed ones, 7200 RPM, so that they can be accessed faster. And there are a couple brands I like to buy because they don't go to sleep as often and they don't take as long to wake up. But you'll have to kind of do your homework on that. The one on the left there is a Phantom. That's a 3 terabyte hard drive. And the one on the right there is a Toshiba, and that's a 7 terabyte. And you'd be surprised. I actually filled up that 3 terabyte on the left there. These are handy for a lot of reasons. If you ever lose your computer ever dies, craps out, whatever, gets stolen, you still have the bulk of your videos. Maybe the current project you might not have on these, but you have the bulk of them. The ones that really matter to me, that are real important, that I never ever want to lose, like family videos, rather than put them on my computer, I actually will put every important video on both of my hard drives. And I'm getting ready to buy a third external hard drive, and I'll buy another 7 terabyte. I really like these Toshiba drives. They're quiet, and they don't get warm. They don't vibrate much. They're nice little drives. So it's worth considering, guys. Just just do your homework. Look on Amazon. Look other places. B&H Photo, I think, sells them. And there's lots of places that sell external hard drives. They can really be nice. I cut the little light shield out of some cardboard made from the carton for my favorite beverage. And I just shot it with a little bit of black paint. And I'll be darned, it's going to work just great. This little standoff here will just screw on the top. I need to put a star washer in it. I'm not going to put it on real tight. I need some wiggle room as I kind of move this around to install it. I'm going to take these bushings out of the old grommets now. I just needed to see how they were oriented, so I put them all back in as I took it apart. And I'll just stick these bushings one at a time into the new ones. They fit nice and tight, which is perfect. That's what I want. You probably hear Buster outside the door wanting in, but today's not the day for him to be in here. So, okay. Before I mount this, I almost forgot. I need to just give it a quick blast of deoxit right in here. You see that slide contact there? If you look real close, you'll see that. And then if I hit another one, you see that they move with the buttons. That's where I want to get with the deoxit, okay? Once I shoot it with the deoxit, then I'm going to, on each set of buttons, I'm going to operate them about 20 times. Then a real quick last shot of deoxit, and then we should be able to call that good. Okie dokie, guys, let's go ahead and mount this thing up, this assembly here, up to the chassis. We got it deoxited, so, is that a word? Deoxited. I don't know. I need the bookworms again. Help me out here. Now remember, this little ground strap goes right here, okay? So we want to make sure that happens when we install this thing. So I'm going to grab a screw and go ahead and stick it into our little device that we made here. Paint's still a little sticky. It'll be okay. Okay. Go ahead and get that in there and get it positioned, okay? Now let's get this first screw started over here. Helps if I have the screwdriver where I can reach it. Okay, get the first one started, just turning it. Sometimes these want to start grabbing the wrong way, and you'll tear up the holes. If they're real tight when you first start turning them, then back it out, change the angles a little bit until you get it where it goes in easier, because otherwise you tear up the holes, and pretty soon you'll make it loose. And you know what? I forgot to put that washer there. Okay, I got a little spacer washer that needs to go around the bushing here. That way, when I compress things, I don't want to over compress the washer, or I don't want to over compress the grommet. Okay, so now it's kind of in position. Now I want to do the same thing over here. Screw is going to go through this guy. Yikes. I need 3 hands, guys. You probably see what I'm doing wrong, but I don't. Through the bushing, and then take this washer, a little thick washer with a large hole that fits over the bushing. That'll give you the right spacing. If you don't have the right spacing, you'll squish the bushing and over compress it, and it'll fail quickly, or you'll have it be too loose and the bushing won't be compressed at all, or that grommet won't be compressed at all. You don't want that grommet to fail quickly, and that's what will happen. There. Okay. Go ahead now, when you're tightening this and you have this little cardboard deal, hold one corner of it as you're tightening it, and it'll keep it from turning with the screw. There. All right, let's turn this around, and we'll mount it up on the back side. Take another screw, run it. Take this ground strap. This ground strap came with this one. Put it through the eyelet, the screw through the eyelet. Run the screw through the bushing. Okay, and then you see there are, I don't know why, but there are two holes on the back side. Pick the right one. Oops, I need that washer. See, too many things to remember. It's not a good job if I don't drop the tool at least 15 or 20 times in a day. It's funny, we have more Philcos around Salt Lake City than any other kind of radio, and it's my least favorite ones to work on. These things are always a pain in the butt, always. And I don't care what vintage, what model, every Philco is a pain in the butt. See, now the magnetic screwdriver is great for pulling the screw out that you want to get started in a hole, but when you want to lift it out, not going to happen. What you have to do is outsmart the thing you're working on. And sometimes that's not so easy. This is slotted for a reason. This thing can be down here, it can be up here. It all depends on the condition of the rest of the stuff. But you want to look at the side of it and make sure it's level before you tighten this down all the way. And it's not easy to tighten down all the way because that stupid ground strap is in the way. So you have to do it with an open end wrench. Working on a Philco is more like working on an old Renault than any other kind of radio I know. Too many washers. It's squishing the grommet down. I don't want that. I may have to adjust it when I put the radio together, but that should do it. Now watch this. When I push the button, see how the whole assembly moves? That's why in the 1209 I saw a screw there and a screw over here on this side that mounted into the cabinet, and that made this more rigid. Okay, let's I'm going to finish installing this thing off camera because the camera's driving me up a wall. Alright, I admit it. I'm a little grumpy today, so I think I'll wrap this video up. And here's a little peek at what's coming. We actually do, I can tell you with authority that we actually will get to the point of powering this radio up, and it's coming soon. So stay tuned, guys. Look real soon for the next part. But for now, we're going to wrap it up. This is Michael from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City. It's Friday afternoon, October the 13th. And that's all for now.